I just want to thank everybody for being here in this moment of shared presence. With so much continuing to unfold in the world right now, especially so close to home with the recent flooding that happened in Texas last week, simply gathering together in this way matters because it reminds us of what anchors us, not in fear, but in faith. And so today, in alignment with the daily word, we're going to be leaning into one of the most vital spiritual qualities that we can cultivate in uncertain times, and that is courage. And so, right here, I just want to ask you to take a brief moment to reflect on courage, not on what courage looks like in theory, but how it feels within you personally, in the lived, quiet moments of your daily life. How do you know when the presence of God is rising up from inside of you, steadying you and guiding you? How does it feel in your body? How does it feel in your mind and in your heart? It may not always be an obvious answer, it may not always come with a sense of certainty, but still we know that something in us responds, right? Something greater than fear, something steady and uplifting. Now, we don't always recognize courage when it's quiet. Like in those moments where you let yourself cry after holding something in for too long, or the choice to keep breathing when you're going through or experiencing intense grief or sorrow, or the unwavering refusal in our daily moments to let fear write the story of our spiritual evolution. This kind of courage isn't always seen or celebrated, but it is sacred. It steadies us when life is uncertain, and it helps us to remain open to love, to healing, to transformation, even when it hurts. So, a couple of weeks ago, we explored the breath in my talk titled Open to the Flow. We explored how it centers us, how it calms the nervous system, and how it brings us back to the present moment. And I believe that our breath is the gateway to courage. It is our anchor through all of life's storms. In the Sufi tradition and in many other ancient spiritual traditions, the breath is seen as sacred. It is a gift from the divine. Each breath is an opportunity to align with spirit, to remember the presence of God within us, and to consent to the presence of God within us. The courage to breathe consciously, especially in moments of fear, of grief, and overwhelm, is seen as an act of devotion. Sufi mystics teach that when we breathe with awareness, we're not just calming the body and the mind, but we are waking ourselves up. We are remembering who we truly are. And that remembrance of our divine origin, of our eternal essence, is what gives us the strength to move through this life with a courageous, open heart. So right now, with so much happening in the world, it's really natural to feel these intense emotions of fear and sadness and frustration and even anger. And these emotions, I just want to highlight, they are real and they are valuable. They show us the weight of the world's pain, and they call us to respond to help one another in a multitude of different ways. And while the weight of these emotions can be really overwhelming at times, they can also become a spark, a call to have us remember the power that we each carry to be a light within dark times. Throughout history, courageous souls, many courageous souls, have stood in the face of darkness, speaking truth to power and bringing light to dark. And this ancient battle between light and darkness continues not only within the world, but within each and every one of us. Let me explain here what I mean. Just going to go ahead and share my slide. Alrighty. So what you see here is called a map of consciousness, and it was developed by Dr. David Hawkins. And it's a tool that helps us to understand different levels of human emotions and awareness. So each emotion is assigned a frequency value responding to representing its vibrational energy, which then correlates to measurable effects in our physiological and neurological systems, indicating whether the emotion promotes a sense of contraction or expansion in our consciousness. So emotions like you see on the bottom, like guilt and fear and grief and anger, these tend to be very dense, heavy, and contracting. So this often manifests in our lives, creating dis-ease within the body, the mind, and in our affairs. But higher states like courage, we can see initiates a powerful shift, marking a turning point from contraction into expansion. Courage opens the door to healing, to resilience, and a greater emotional freedom, leading us towards willingness and acceptance and love and peace and ultimately enlightenment at the top. This shift is more than a feeling. It signals a fundamental change in how our nervous systems respond. So like I said, lower frequencies trigger contraction, right? What does that look like? Tense muscles, shallow breathing, racing, crazy thoughts. In other words, stress activation, right? And oftentimes when we stay in these places for too long, right, we're not meant to stay in these places for too long, we get stuck in a cycle of repetition and reactivity. But higher frequencies like courage tend to activate the parasympathetic nervous response, our rest and restore state, which allows relaxation, more mental clarity, and the ability to live with an open heart. Now, choosing courage means consciously engaging in this shift, even when it feels impossible. And it's not about perfection, right? Getting it right every time or not having to feel these lower feelings. And it's not even about fearlessness, but what it is about recognizing the divine presence within us, steadying us through it all, reminding us that even in the darkest moments, there is a way out and there is a way up. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. I just want to take a moment to speak to those who may be in a position right now where they are carrying unimaginable grief and sorrow, especially the parents who have lost children, whether in the recent flooding or in the many instances of violence happening across the world. Grief is not just a passing feeling. It is a profound and necessary emotion, and it serves as an essential purpose to honor what has been lost, to hold the depth and the capacity of our love, and to connect us to our shared humanity. Every human being on the face of this earth will experience grief in some form at some point. And in that experience, we all come to realize and understand that there really is no timetable for healing grief. There is no one-size-fits-all path either, right? Grief, the journey of grief unfolds in its own sacred rhythm according to our each of the individual's unique life experiences. But when we experience trauma, and trauma is often overwhelming, the mind often suppresses that pain just in order to help us to function. And this is a natural response, right? And it's often necessary and vital in the beginning stages. Sometimes it helps people to survive. But if the trauma that's been suppressed is never given space to move, it doesn't just disappear. It waits until life presents a moment, a trigger, an invitation for it to rise, to be seen and acknowledged, and ultimately released. In yogic philosophy, and I mentioned this in my talk a couple weeks ago, these emotional imprints, they're called samskaras. These are residues from unprocessed and not released emotional experiences. And they live in our mind, in our body, in the nervous system, and in the subtle energy fields that are around us. Now, this is why I highlight on the breath. And this is why breath is so sacred. It's not about some quick fix or, spiritually bypassing, like, oh, you just went through a really horrible moment. Just take a breath, you'll be all right. No, right? Breath is a steady companion that is truly available to us at every moment of our lives as long as we are in these physical bodies. It is a lifeline that helps us to stay present when the weight of the world feels unbearable. And the breath becomes this bridge between what is buried within us and what's ready to rise, between the unconscious and the conscious, between the ache of the past and the grace of the release that is available to us in the present moment. 20th century priest, mystic, and teacher Pierre Desjardins, I think I said that right. I ain't French. But he was quoted saying, and I'm sure you've heard this before, it's a popular one in Unity: we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And one of my favorite Catholic priests and teachers, Father Thomas Keating, said, for human beings, the most daunting challenge is to become fully human. For to become fully human is to become fully divine. And so with that, I believe that what we must do in this human experience on the path to recognizing and living truly and wholly in our divinity is honor the courage that it takes to feel, to let even a small part of that pain move through you, to cry when the tears come, to breathe deeply when the breath wants to tighten, to move in any way that we can possibly move when we simply just want to collapse, to scream if we need to. If you don't want to scream out loud, scream into a pillow. Beat the crap out of your mattress. It can take it. Allow what you're going through to express itself, to not manifest and stay stuck within your body. And in this process, we trust that something holy is unfolding, even if we may never understand it. This is the courage and the resilience of the human heart, to not harden, to not shut down, but to remain open through it all. Persian mystic poet Rumi said, the wound is the place where the light enters you. In my life experience, I witnessed both of my grandmothers, my grandparents, lose multiple children before what we'd call their time. And as I grew older, I witnessed how that grief shaped them. It hardened them, not because they didn't love, quite the opposite. It was because the pain for them in that moment was too much for them to carry. And because of their own unique life experiences and upbringings, what they were taught, they didn't have the space or the support or even the language of the sacred process of grieving. And so it stayed inside of them. It stayed unspoken and unresolved, and it shaped how they lived, how they loved or chose not to, how they guarded and protected themselves, and ultimately how they died. One of those children that they lost was my father. And this past Friday, July 11th, marked 34 years of his passing and transitioning into his ethereal body. I was obviously very young when he died, and for many years, that loss felt like a hole that was never going to be able to be filled. Nobody could tell me any different. But as I continue to deepen in my spiritual practice, my breath work, and I began to move through the grief. I now have a deeper understanding that our connection, it's not gone, it's just transformed and evolved into something different. And I've begun to sense my father in moments, not only in memory, but in energy and in presence, in moments of stillness, in moments of intuition. And still going back to that reality that there is no timetable for grief. Even after 34 years, I still have moments of sadness where I weep because I miss the physical presence of my father. I miss the unique personality that was and could only be his. But as I continue to grow through it and I continue to learn, I'm learning that when we allow ourselves to deeply feel even the most tender of places, we truly create an opening. The wound is the place where the light enters you. That pain that we feel becomes a threshold. It becomes a sacred space where something new can be born. A deeper awareness, a greater compassion, a fuller embodiment of love. Albert Einstein said, everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Consciousness is eternal. We are not these bodies alone, right? Science now affirms that we are this powerful, unimaginably powerful energy that is vibrating at a certain frequency that shapes these beautiful physical forms that we call you and I. And I believe that our souls travel and they return and they evolve, and that the energy of those who are no longer physically with us is still here and very actively present because it is woven into the collective field of love. And that remains forever. This life is part of a much larger journey. I'm sure you've gotten that by now. But it's one that the mind may not ever fully and completely grasp, but the heart can remember. And so when we breathe, when we choose to heal, when we live with the courage to keep on rising, we begin to expand. And in that expansion, we come to a realization we're not just doing it for ourselves. In our process of healing, of becoming, we are honoring our ancestors. We are honoring the children's lives that were lost, that are no longer with us in form. We are healing the pain that may have hardened generations, and we are contributing to a transformation that ripples across lifetimes. Your breath, your courage to feel, your willingness to stay open extends far beyond what the eyes can see. And so I invite you to consider, how can you be courageous in your own evolution, not just in your healing, but in your becoming, in your awakening, in your unique unfolding on this earth? To be lit from within means to carry light not just as a concept, but as a living, breathing experience. To tend to that inner flame when the world feels dark. And so in the next few minutes, I would like to invite you to turn inward, to gently bring your attention to that sacred space inside of you where courage lives, where light flickers and grows, and where breath becomes both your anchor and your prayer. Please join me in a short breathwork and meditation practice together. If you're not already sitting, please do so now, in a position that supports a straight spine. And you can close your eyes if that feels comfortable and safe and appropriate for you. If not, you can just fix your gaze on a spot in front of you. Allow your arms to either rest at your sides or on your lap or in a mudra if that feels Like it's what you want to do today. And let us just begin by taking a deep breath in through your nose and slowly exhale through your mouth. Let's do that again, breathing in through the nose deeply, exhaling through the mouth slowly and completely. Now we're going to begin to settle into a gentle rhythm. We've done this before if you've heard any of my talks. This is a parasympathetic breathing technique. You're going to inhale through the nose for a count of 4. And then you're going to pause at the top and then exhale through the mouth for a count of 6. Let's do it again. Inhaling through the nose for 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhaling through the mouth for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhaling through the nose for 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhale through the mouth for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, inhale through the nose for 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhale through the mouth for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep it going. Inhale through the nose for 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhale through the mouth for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, inhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 more times. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. Breathe in deep for 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Biggest breath of the day here. Last one. Inhale for 2, 3, 4. Hold. Feel that presence. Exhale for 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now just let your breath breathe in its own natural rhythm. Feel the subtle difference in your body and your mind. And as you breathe here, imagine the breath illuminating the light within your cells and your body, softly illuminating the spaces that may feel heavy or weary. With each gentle exhale, we release what you no longer need to carry in this moment. If emotions arise, let them. There is nothing to fix, only to feel. Keep your heart open. You are safe to soften. You are safe to be still, and you are safe to be present with whatever is right now. Gently begin to bring your attention to your heart. If it feels right, you can place one hand on your heart and just feel the quiet pulse of life, your unique rhythm, your unique presence of love on this earth. Let it remind you that this light is your divine presence and it lives within you. Take one final deep breath in and a slow breath out. Begin to bring some small movement back into your fingers and your toes. Maybe roll your shoulders a little bit. Maybe give a little shake. Further release anything that may be ready to go. And then gently open your eyes and come back to the room, carrying with you the knowing that courage is not something that you chase. It is something that you remember. And may you recognize always that you are truly lit from within. Thank you so much. Namaskar.